Hello and welcome back to my channel, Welshman Reviews. Today I'm doing my non-spoiler review for Insidious The Red Door. So this is the fifth movie in the Insidious franchise. You know, the ones beforehand was Insidious, Insidious 2, Insidious Chapter 3 and Insidious The Last Key, which last came out in 2018. So it's been a 5-year gap between it, but it's been a 13-year gap from the first movie to this one. So this is pretty much a proper sequel to the first two. Like 3 and 4 are kind of their own things, pretty much concentrating on the Lynn Shay's character, Elise. It is. But yeah, this one does finish off the Lambert family story, let's say, and that. So first of all, this is directed by Patrick Wilson, who also stars in the movie. So this is his first his first movie as a director. Can't really say the other word I wanted to say. I did. It is. So yeah, so it was first. So obviously he stars back in this. Ty Simpkins as Dalton, the young Dalton, is more of an adult one now, off to university or college. It is. Rose Byrne does come back as Rennie Lambert, Patrick Wilson's now ex-wife in this movie. It is, and a couple of ones as well. Steve Coulter, who played Carl in the second movie, Elise's friend, who helps hypnotize. Helps the family out as a little cameo in the beginning, and obviously Lynn Shay does come back as Elise Rayner in a couple of scenes of the movie as well. Also, Lee Winnell and Angus Sampson come back as Specs and Tucker, only for a little cameo on like a YouTube channel type thing on the computer. It is. So pretty much the story for this takes place 9 years after the second movie. Apologies there. And it is, the beginning of the movie is pretty much Carl hypnotizing Josh and Dalton to forget that 1 year where Dalton went into a coma and all the fervour and stuff like that. So totally forget about that whole year. So we skip forward into 9 years. Unfortunately, Josh's mother's just passed away, so they're at a funeral. The family's a bit estranged. You find out then that Josh and Rennie are divorced, but it's all because of that 1 year that's been skipped through the thing. Josh has a thing in his life now where things have gone very foggy for him. He's a bit slower and stuff. He can't remember certain things and all that. But that 1 year keeps popping back up into him and Dalton's head. So Dalton now is going to university. He is going into the art, and his new art teacher kind of like stirs up a few things, because she's saying, for your inspiration, for your art, you've got to delve deep in yourself and all that. She counts down from 10 to 1, which I think we've seen in previous movies as well, maybe the first 2 movies. It is. So all this stuff stirring back up from the demon that was in the first movie, not really the second movie. It ain't. But yeah, so Dalton kind of goes a bit more into that, wondering why he keeps thinking of all these things. And obviously his younger brother doesn't really know why it is, so he's saying, but his mother knows all about it, which does come to a head a bit later in the third act. As a whole for this movie, I didn't mind it. I kind of enjoyed it. I'm not going to say where I rank it in my top 5 and all that for the Insidious movies. You'll have to come back on Friday, where I'll have my 7th episode of Horror Friday, which will be the rankings of the Insidious movies. It is, but yeah, this movie's kind of, I've heard some people like it, some dislike it. I didn't mind it. Unfortunately, for a conclusion of that story of the first and the second movie, it was kind of a weak finish, to be honest. the acting's pretty good in it. I did like Dalton and Josh's interactions in the beginning, where they have a very strained relationship and all that. Josh kind of has a hang up on his old man leaving him and his mother when he was young, when he was like 40 odd years ago. It is, but you do get a little conclusion to that part of the story a bit later as well, with Josh and that. But kind of them two together is pretty much the beginning of the movie and the end of the movie, really. They're never together. They're kind of dealing with these problems they have on their own. They are, like, Josh is going to doctors and stuff like that, but Dalton does have a roommate, Sinclair Daniel, who plays Chris Winslow in it as well. So she kind of helps him a little bit deal with his problems there. But yeah, you don't really get that too much of the interaction of the family during the whole movie, not like you did with the first two movies. Patrick Wilson does do a pretty good job directing, but the problem with that is the first two movies are directed by James Wan. James Wan has a very distinctive directing style, you know, with sweeping camera movements and stuff. You watch a James Wan movie, you know you're watching a James Wan movie at the end of the day. It is, you know, you don't even have to know who's directed, but if you've watched it and you see it, you know you are. So yeah, this is a bit disappointing on that level of direction, or like the cinematography and all that. Maybe not so much the direction, but the cinematography, that you don't have them sweeping shots like in a James Wan movie. I think the best shot in this movie is probably the beginning of the movie, just after the hypnotized scene, is where they start upside down and then you turn it around when they're in the grave at the funeral, and they spin it back around. So you start upside down and then you come back around looking at the gravestone and then coming up to the family. Probably one of the best shots of the movie and all that, but yeah, nothing too noteworthy of this movie, to be honest, for the camera style, etc. A little bit disappointing as well. You don't see the demon that often, even though he's supposedly a prominent part of this movie, I think, in the trailers and all that. I would say you're lucky enough to have 5 minutes of screen time of that creature in this movie. It is. So that was a little bit disappointing as well. A lot of jump scares in this movie. Some work, some don't. They kind of do a couple, like one after the other type of thing, which it kind of takes you out after the first one. You're like, oh, are you expecting them then? It is. But like I said, most of the story of this is, it looked like a really good story on paper, but it doesn't look like they executed it well enough, unfortunately. It's like with Josh's father, or Dalton and his father and stuff like that, it kind of like rush through the story of where they end up towards the end of the movie. It is. And like I said, the third act was a kind of a letdown of the movie as well, where you had pretty much a good Insidious 1 and 2. You kind of have a really good third act thing. In this one, you don't really get it. It kind of comes and goes when you think about it. And yeah, the ending is, unfortunately, very lackluster, unfortunately. Like I said, the acting's very good in this though, and if you're a fan of the Insidious movies, I think this is a decent installment in the franchise. Just a very disappointing conclusion to that ending, unfortunately. And do stay for the credits, because they do have the band Ghost featuring Patrick Wilson doing lead vocals, doing a song for, I can't remember this band's name now, but I was going to say Scissor Sisters, but it's not Scissor Sisters, but it's because Shakespeare Sisters, that's it. Got it in the end there. Shakespeare Sisters song Stay. Yeah, Ghost featuring Patrick Wilson does do a very nice haunting rendition of that song, which a lot of people are coming around to Patrick Wilson as a singer. First movie I remember seeing him in was Phantom of the Opera, where he played Raoul. He is Christine's boyfriend, or soon-to-be boyfriend and all that, so I knew him as a singer from back then. I did, but yeah, got a good voice on him, and that's a very haunting movie, and it's a nice thing to see at the end of the movie. Like I said, I kind of enjoyed it. If you're a horror fan and you're like me, I kind of forgive I kind of forgive horror movies a lot more than other genres. But like I said, this one's okay. Not the best installment in the franchise. Not too sure if it's the worst. I think I'll have to rewatch the other movies this week before I do my rankings on the Friday. I will. But yeah, not too bad. And I do recommend, if you're a horror fan and you like the Insidious movies, I do recommend going to see it. I'll give this movie a 5.5, 6 out of 10. I will buy it when it comes out on thing. Hopefully we get a nice still steelbook. There's a couple of drawings in the movie that I really hope they use as a steelbook design, which they probably won't, but I do hope they do. But yeah, 5 out of 5, 5.5, 6 out of 10. If you're a horror fan, yeah, watch it. You'll enjoy it probably and all. If you're not, I probably skip it. I doubt you're really going to enjoy it. But yeah, that's my review for Insidious The Red Door. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up. Leave a comment below if you watched the movie. Tell me what you think. Or tell me your rankings as well for the Insidious ones and all that. I like to hear people's opinions on this series and all that. Because it is one that kind of got me back in the horror after the beginning of the 2000s, which weren't the best horror films coming out at the time. They weren't. So this movie and The Conjuring and James Wan in particular kind of got me back into horror and when it came out, around when they came out. So yeah, leave me a comment down below. I get back to them all. And if you'd like to see more videos, I guess, please subscribe to my channel. And I'll see you next time. Bye.